Hello, everyone. Welcome to the OMG My Vintage YouTube channel. I'm going to apologize in advance for the next few slides, which is basically a dull presentation. I do have a corporate background, so for those of you in a similar spot, you'll understand PowerPoint decks. But for the next few minutes, I'll go through these 4 items here, what this channel is about, what to expect, why I started going to garage sales and estate sales, what I hope to gain from this channel, and what are my specialty niche areas. What this channel is about and what to expect, I think, are pretty straightforward. I hope to be able to share my weekly garage and estate sale finds. From my experience, I don't think I'll be able to record while I'm actually at the sale. So it'll be more of after the fact once I purchase items. I also do not go into thrift stores or Goodwill stores. I used to, but based on the amount of items that I was getting and the profit I was making, it just wasn't worth it. And so I started focusing more on estate sales and garage sales as I come across those. I'll also share my reasons for buying each item, what I specifically look for. I have my own niche. I don't think it'll be anything that's groundbreaking, but maybe it'll be interesting enough, or maybe you'll pick up a thing here or there. I'll also share what each item typically sells for. My go-to source will be eBay, just because it's easily accessible and there's tons of data available that I could typically rely on. And then lastly, in terms of what to expect, selfishly for me, as I hope to use this channel to build a community, I'm hoping that we'll be able to learn from each other because we all have specialty items or niches that we all are considered experts in. I have my own. I think every one of you has your own. And so I hope to be able to leverage this channel so that we could all learn from one another. Why I first started going to garage and estate sales wasn't initially about the money. It was, as you see on the slide, number one, to hang out with my parents. What I mean by that is during COVID a couple years ago, once that started hitting, I started realizing that I was visiting my parents about once a month, only once a month, despite living an hour away from them in the same state. Pretty sad, pretty pathetic if you ask me. And so that self reflection made me realize that I need to do a better job given that I'm lucky enough to have both parents living in the same state. And so I made it a point to try to hang out every weekend. And what we started doing together was going to thrift stores and especially Goodwill stores in the beginning. We would do that every weekend. We would go to a local pho restaurant, and there happened to be a Goodwill. And we're like, hey, you know what? We could use the exercise after eating all that pho. And so we went to the Goodwill next door. And then it started to become a regular thing because then we started realizing, oh, we're also getting some exercise. My parents typically stay in on the weekends, and so this was a good excuse for all of us to get some steps in during these estate sale trips. So definitely some benefit there, some personal benefit there. Obviously, as we started getting more into these trips, it's evolved from Goodwill and thrift stores to more estate sales, garage sales, because the treasure hunting aspect was just a lot more fun at these garage and estate sales. And then as we started purchasing items, we started making money. Not a ton, and it's still, I wouldn't say a ton. Definitely not something that we can live off of, any one of us. But it was enough to be able to help tackle either debt or reduce expenses. For me personally, because I am the one who does all the listings and all that, I still use this opportunity to give back to my parents to help reduce expenses because they're up there in age, retirement age. And so whatever debt they have or still have, whatever expenses they have, every single cent of profit will go back towards my parents, and so it's done a lot of good. Uh, in addition to these first two items, what I hope to gain from this channel, I mentioned this before, but it's twofold. Number one, I am going to use this channel to document my finds along with my parents who also have their own unique eye on certain items, and then also to document my progress because the videos that I post here will be used to understand what things worked or what items worked, what items didn't, based on comments. Hopefully, that will come through this channel. Which items I should start looking out for, and what things that I should start avoiding. And then, secondly, using this channel to build a community because we all have our own specialty areas or items that we all look for. I have my own. I'm sure every one of you has your own. And so I think this channel can be used to just learn from one another, and we could all hopefully use this hobby, or I don't know, full-time hobby, as a way to earn even more income through this community. So what are my specialty areas when it comes to estate sales? Couple areas. The first is sports memorabilia, including trading cards. So this includes clothing, right? So sports teams, clothing, autographed memorabilia, and trading cards. I would say out of those three buckets, trading cards is probably the most difficult because everyone thinks their trading cards are worth the most, especially if it has Michael Jordan on the card. But in reality, I would say 99.99% of the trading cards that I've come across and you'll probably come across is going to be from what's called the junk wax era from the late 80s to early 90s when things were vastly or mass produced. The autograph memorabilia, I've had luck here and there. In I think what will be my first video, I'll share some wins from this past weekend. Actually, that probably doesn't help, but the weekend of the 12th is June 12th is when I think I got pretty lucky with some purchases I made. But typically, these estate sale companies will overprice their sports memorabilia, especially autographed items. And so I've had more success with clothing than anything else when it comes to sports. The other area, pretty straightforward, is men's clothing. I've had a lot of experience with designer brands. If I'm able to come across those, have had a lot of wins, had some losses, but through those experiences is how I've developed an eye for certain type of men's clothing. I am starting to learn more about vintage clothing that's non-sports related, but again, this is where it leads to my final point, which is for me personally, I'm always learning something from every single estate sale that I go to because there's none of them are identical. There's always something different, which is also the main reason why I started staying away from thrift stores and Goodwill stores because those, you'll get lucky here and there, which, I've had my share of luck as well. But typically it's not the treasure hunting aspect isn't as high as it is with estate sales. And so there's always something that I'm coming across at these estate sales that I've just don't know about that I need to eBay or Google to learn more about that. I'll go home and start Googling things and I'm like, oh, shoot, I should have probably picked that up. But there's always something that I'm learning. And I absolutely love that about this hobby that happens to make money as well on the side. But those are my specialty areas. Hopefully this was a quick and helpful intro. I know it's a little bit caveman-like when it comes to this PowerPoint, but it was the easiest way for me to share just a quick intro But in the next videos, I think I'll start to get into more of the showing off of what I've been able to pick up the past weekend. As I develop my skills around video editing, which I dread, hopefully I'll be able to continue to provide some value. But as comments roll in, I think I should be able to respond to every single one. If you have any questions, please comment, reach out. And lastly, please subscribe and help support this channel. And I think we'll close it with that. Thanks all.